Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, I say it's alright.
From the Fusion Consortium Studios in sunny Pasadena, California, this is the inaugural episode of Starlords with Dr. Melanie and Randall Volberg. Our guests today are ourselves. We'll be chatting about how we came to Fusion, what we find most exciting about it, and why we launched this podcast. Now brace yourself as we enter the kaleidoscope horn o' plenty, Starlords! All right. Hi, Melanie. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you.
Great. So let's get right into it. First of all, how did you come to fusion energy?
Well, it actually goes right back to just after my undergraduate degree. I studied physics at university, and then afterwards I went traveling. I had a gap year. In fact, I had a couple of gap years while I increased my experience of the world in general, and I tried to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. At that time, I suppose I was already aware of climate change, and I was concerned about it, as well as what we would do for energy when fossil fuels run out. And then when I was traveling, I was just made more aware of these things. I was seeing some of the effects in real life, if you like. I was diving and coral reefs, and I was hiking in the mountains, and so I could see some of the effects of the warming. And one day I read about fusion energy, and I thought, if we could do this, it would be incredible. It would really just solve our energy problems. It's clean, it's green, it's safe, it's abundant. I mean, the trouble is it's really hard to do, but I thought if we could do it, it would just really be a wonderful thing. And so that's what got me interested in fusion energy, and I started researching it a little bit more, and I decided to come home to do a PhD in plasma physics, specializing in fusion energy. So that was back in 2004, and I started my PhD with Imperial College in 2005, and yeah, it's gone on from there.
Very cool. Very cool. As for myself, I first came in a very different way. I had, when I was in grade 3, we were assigned a research report to do, to go in the library, go to one of the encyclopedias, and just create a report. And so I came across energy, and I came across fusion, and that's when I first fell in love with the concept. It was this universal power source that was, like you said, clean. It was, it didn't have any of the drawbacks of a lot of the, existing technologies that we had. It was on demand. All of these things that were limiting existing technologies. And at the time, I just saw that as the purview of big government to do this big research. And it was only until I then went on, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and you were never sort of expected to get a job or to go to school. It was more about create a business. And I've been a serial entrepreneur my whole life, but I've always loved academia. I've always loved science, and I always kind of found my way kind of being dragged back, and not dragged, but attracted back into that world. And so when I sold my last business, I really just kind of noticed I had actually went and saw a counselor, and she said to me something. She says, "You're not in your purpose. All these years you haven't been in your purpose." And it kind of struck a chord with me. And so I kind of did a deep dive internally to find out what is that purpose. And I kind of reconnected with that really core, passion that I had for fusion and for energy. And so at that point, maybe it was part of a midlife crisis, I don't know, but I decided at that point, I'm going to devote the rest of my life to advancing fusion energy. And all that while I had been tracking fusion, especially because General Fusion was just in my backyard, the Vancouver-based fusion startup that began in 2002. And that really opened the door for me in the sense of saying, hey, I can contribute, because prior to that, it was just seen as a big government project. But groups like Tri-Alpha and Tokamak Energy and others, said, hey, let's bring entrepreneurial resources and talent into this and make this happen faster and potentially more effective. So that's where I said, hey, you know what, I can contribute. That's part of my wheelhouse, as part of my skill set. So that's when I decided a few years ago to go into this full time, and it's been an absolute homecoming, and I have not looked back since.
It's really interesting that you came into it, or rather you got the first idea so young. So how did you find it again? Wasn't it long buried, the fusion idea?
I sort of, it actually, to take it a step back, I was always in love with space science. So, I got, shows like Star Trek were just absolutely inspiring to me. And that sort of concept, Gene Roddenberry's concept of this post-scarcity society where people didn't fight over energy, there was no money, all these concepts were in the past, and we had this great ability to see the world not as a bunch of different countries and peoples, but we were one Earth, and we are now traveling out into the cosmos to that old saying, to at the end of all our exploring, to return where we began and know the place for the first time, and to evolve as a society. And that really inspired me, and I saw fusion and technologies like that as the foundations for creating that world, because actually on the Star Trek, the impulse drives are fusion powered. So yeah, I came from it from a very nerdy layman perspective, to be honest, and it was more focused on adventure and space travel. But as I got older, that matured, and of course with climate change, that's job number one. I saw the tremendous ability of fusion to address these very important issues. So yeah, that's how it kind of the seeds of it were really sprung in my love of adventure.
That's a really good reason, I think.
Well, coming from you, that's absolutely. Thank you. So what for you is the most exciting thing about fusion?
For me, getting it done. I want to achieve fusion. I want to live in a world where everybody has access to energy to improve their lifestyles, but where it doesn't have such a negative impact on the planet that we have at the moment. I think that when we can do fusion, it will be incredible. And that to me is the most exciting thing, just achieving fusion. But yeah, that's really what I want.
Yeah, I absolutely share that pragmatic viewpoint. I think I often say my favorite reactor concept is the one that ultimately works. So, and we need it now more than ever. And I think you see a lot of escalation on the climate change front, and it's really important to get this technology online and to really get people educated on the technology, because people still don't know. If you were to walk across an average person and you say, what's fusion, they won't know what it is. And I really see the need for creating a zeitgeist in the public sphere, and creating that Apollo trip to the moon, Manhattan Project moment for fusion. And I think that, there are a lot of great people working on fusion right now, but I think it's going to take all of us, artists, entrepreneurs, policymakers, moms, dads, teachers, every one of us to, help bring about that groundswell of enthusiasm and momentum to make this a reality. Because it's all connected. When you have enough people, in the public interested, that affects policymakers. Policymakers then say, okay, let's allocate more funding, and then that accelerates development. So it's an ecosystem that we need to cultivate on all fronts.
Yes, I agree. And there's so many things that have to come together to commercialize fusion as well. It's not just about the science. It's also about, as you say, the business and the politics, and all these things have to come together. So it's not just like one group of people, if you like. It's going to take lots of groups of people being aware of fusion and wanting to contribute, wanting to do something about it.
Absolutely. Very cool.
And also fusion is, as you just mentioned about why you got excited about it, it's really exciting because there are other potential applications too. It's not just about generating electricity. In fact, it could also be used for the hydrogen economy. Even you mentioned interplanetary space travel. If we could make small enough fusion engines, it's like the best thing for transport over light years or many great distances. So there's so much that you could do with fusion if we could do it, not just electricity generation.
Yeah, there's industrial heat, and what other applications can
Yeah, there's
be
like
applied?
marine propulsion as well. It would be another one. Probably medical applications.
Right. Yeah. In fact, one of our members, Tri Alpha, is just going into neutron capture therapy
Hmm.
using that technology. Yeah. So it's much like the space program in that it's, for every dollar that's spent on the research, there's, $10 of derivative technology that's developed as well. Would
And
that be accurate?
there are probably spin outs that we can't even imagine at the
Right.
moment. You
Very
never
cool.
know.
So for you, why this podcast?
So I think that there are lots of interesting stories out there about fusion. I think there are lots of different angles. As I mentioned, lots of things need to come together. The science and technology, the business, the politics, there's also a lot of history there. So there are going to be stories and interesting things to explore. So why not explore them?
Absolutely. I think that dovetails nicely just in how you've devoted your life as a communicator for science and STEM. And one question I had for you: the role in terms of women in fusion? What's the status of that? Is there a lot of interest? You work with a lot of students, and you present at the Royal Society, and you're really covering all the bases. You consult with Tokamak Energy. What's your feel in terms of the regard for fusion in the general public?
Oh, I think that there's lots of questions there. I think in the general public, when people hear about fusion, I think that they're excited about fusion because, as we said, it's an exciting concept. And so once they hear about it, they are excited. However, like you said earlier, a lot of people don't know what fusion is, and they also confuse it with fission quite often. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done just to raise the general awareness of fusion and what it is and its potential importance. So I think that's the general public view. As far as the women in fusion goes, well, we are here. There are some of us working in fusion. Like many science, particularly physics industries, we're in the minority, but I hope that will change. It's a fascinating area in which to work. I really enjoy it. It's not just, there are so many different ways to work in science as well. I think a lot of females or girls at school can sometimes think that it's very, I don't know, maybe it's very mechanical or masculine or something that they wouldn't necessarily fit into well, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. And so a lot of the work that I do with education and with schools is to try and show students the relevance of physics in particular to their lives or to the real world. Because I think if you can relate to something, particularly an abstract concept like physics at school, it can be quite tricky. If you can see how this affects you or where it comes into your own life, then I think that becomes a lot more interesting, because ultimately physics and maths are the tools that we use to do these interesting jobs and solve these interesting problems. And so if children can see what's exciting to them and where these tools can be applied to solve problems or challenges that are exciting to them, then they're going to be more interested in going into those careers. And also if they can see a place for them in those careers, like there are more women there, or they won't be the only female on the site, or if they can see that there's a place for them, then they're probably more likely to want to go into those fields as well. So I try and show those kind of things to students when I go into schools and talk to them about the exciting things that we can do with physics. So yeah, we're here in physics, and I hope that there will be more of us in the future.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Now, you're going to be speaking at the Royal Society in a couple days?
Yes, it's actually an international fusion discussion meeting. We're going to be talking about fusion energy using tokamaks and whether the development can be accelerated. So we've actually got people from around the world, scientists from like MIT, people from Cullum in the UK, Eurofusion, ITER, people from Asia as well, like Japan. So all these different people coming together to discuss tokamak fusion and whether there's a way forward faster.
Very good. And how is the progress going?
Well, I'm working with tokamak energy, and yeah, it's progressing well. It's we've got a tokamak ST40 that's operating at the moment. This is a spherical tokamak, and we're investigating how the plasma behaves in a compact spherical shape with high magnetic fields. It's in the early stages of commissioning and operation at the moment, but it's quite exciting to be doing that.
Excellent. Cool. So I have one last question for you, and that's the mystery question. And it is, what is the last song you sung out loud?
Well, actually, just before I spoke to you, I was playing the guitar, and it was a song called, I think it's like Hiding My Heart or something. Adele did a cover of it, but it was sung by somebody else beforehand. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, Adele, Hiding My Heart was the last song I sung out loud.
You feel free to start right now if you like. If you want. No?
Maybe next time.
Okay. Let's see. For me, it was a couple days ago. My daughter was doing some karaoke action with the fight song. This is my fight song. I don't know who sings it. But,
I don't even know that song.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
But 2 days ago was the last time you sang a song out loud.
Yeah, is that bad?
That's ages. I sing several all day.
Really? Oh, yeah. I need to go back and see that counselor. I'm a horribly repressed individual. Okay. I'll look into that. Thank you.
Release more.
Well, thank you so much, Melanie. This was fun. And we'll be definitely doing more. You're going to be heading off to Everest, Mount Everest. Not Everest, the restaurant or cafe if it's out there. This is Everest, the real mountain. And yeah, can you describe that a bit, actually?
Well, yeah, I'm leaving on Saturday, the 31st of March. So it's really soon now, just over a week. I'm going to try and climb the mountain. Hopefully it's going to be amazing. I'm really looking forward to just seeing the place, actually, because I'm interested in the history of the place and particularly the science. I realized a few years ago that one of the main reasons we were able to summit Everest back in 1953, where they hadn't been able to do it in previous years, like in the 30s and in the 20s, was because of the science involved and the technology. And so when I realized that, I thought, it's incredible how we don't really think about the science in the mountains. And actually there's so much that supports us. And the commercialization of Everest has made it a lot safer over the decades as well. And that's partly due to better management, but it's also a lot to do with improvements in science and technology, such as better weather forecasting, better communications, better medical understanding. All of these things really contribute to safety and performance on the mountain. So I'm going to investigate all of those kind of things. And I just can't wait to see the place and to see the mountain and to be in this historical environment and like walking where these other famous mountaineers have trod before me. It's going to be quite exciting.
Oh yeah, it will be. I'm just inspired and in awe every time I watch those movies about Everest and you see the,
not the scary ones.
Yeah, it is. They all seem scary to me. I think the best application of science and technology to Everest is like a tram that just goes straight up. And I pay $20 and there I go. It just, I'm in absolute awe of your effort to achieve this. I think it's phenomenal. And, yeah, please, if you can maybe record a little something while you're at base camp or something, and we can upload it to the podcast or later on or share it on the next podcast, that would be awesome. So do you plan to do it? I'm sorry?
I said gladly. I can do that. We'll be updating on Twitter and Facebook as well.
Good. Okay, yeah, we'll follow up with that. So yeah, so we'll be doing more podcasts once Melanie returns, and we'll be having some guests. And yeah, having fun with this. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll look forward to next time. Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Woke up feeling heavy-hearted. I'm going back to where I started. The morning rain, the moaning rain.